For the last 6 months now, I've been using a phone that doesn't let Google track me, but I can still use Google Maps, YouTube and Gmail. They just can't see everything that I'm doing on my phone. So today we're going to be looking at what might be the closest thing to a real stealth phone using a hardened operating system and a privacy-focused mobile carrier. And after dailying it for about 6 months now, I'm not sure if I can go back to using normal phones again. You see, your smartphone knows an uncomfortable amount about you, where you go, who you talk to, what apps you use, even when you're asleep. And for the last few years, we've all just sort of accepted that as the trade-off for having such a convenient device always with us. But in a world where everything revolves around accounts, IDs, phone numbers, apps, and data collection, privacy has slowly become something that we just trade away without even really thinking about it. So I wanted to try something different and see what it actually looks like to use a phone that puts privacy and security first. Bit ironic that I'm holding a Pixel. But the starting point for all of this was GrapheneOS, combined with a private mobile carrier called Cape. I switched from Samsung to this Google Pixel 10 Pro XL, not because it's the best Android phone, but because Pixels are one of the few devices that properly support GrapheneOS. GrapheneOS is basically a privacy and security focused version of Android that strips away all the unnecessary tracking, background services, AI features, and bloat that modern phones just are filled with nowadays. Pretty much what Android should have been when it came straight out of the box. Under the hood, it's based on the Android open source project, but it's a lot more hardened. Now you might be wondering, how does a GrapheneOS Pixel compare to an iPhone? Well, Apple definitely does more for privacy than most big tech companies, but ultimately you actually have to trust Apple itself, because their iOS is completely closed source, so there's a limit to how transparent it can really be. I actually started monitoring the network traffic from all of my Apple devices, and I realised just how often modern smartphones phone home to their company servers in the background. And even if I disable a lot of those features, they're still sending logs like mad. It's genuinely quite scary. Android has a similar problem through the Google Play services. A huge number of apps actually rely on it as a service, and you can't remove it or disable it without actually breaking everything. Google Play services sits right at the center of the experience and controls most apps now. However, GrapheneOS handles this differently. It actually sandboxes Google Play services, almost like it's a regular app on your phone, which gives you much more control over the permissions, background access, and you can even choose if you ever want to install it or not. This is what GrapheneOS looks like. As you can see, it is incredibly plain. We've got no default wallpaper, all the icons are kind of in like this grayscale theme. I don't know, I kind of like it actually, but yeah, look at the standard apps that it comes with. Literally the bare essentials. So no AI, no pre-installed bloatware like you get on some Samsung phones. This is pretty much it, and I love it. It is really good. So the default web browser we've got here is called Vanadium, which is kind of like a Chrome fork, but it's way more secure. Although you can install apps, like I said, from the Play Store or from this app store here. So this is the app store that comes in with GrapheneOS. So you can actually install Google Play Store, Google Play Services, and also Android Auto through here as well, which is a huge one for me. And we've also got the Crescent store here as well, which you can actually install Cape through. See, even if I've got GrapheneOS on my phone and the phone itself is private, your mobile carrier still sees a huge amount of information about you. Your phone number, your billing details, which cell towers your device connects to, and can potentially work out patterns about where you travel to and how you use your phone. And that's what made Cape so interesting to me. So Cape is a US-based privacy-focused mobile carrier, which is quite interesting because they're basically trying to rethink what a modern phone network should look like if privacy was actually the priority instead of just data collection and money. One thing that genuinely surprised me about first signing up for Cape was just how little information they actually collect on you compared to, say, a traditional mobile carrier. Cape say they minimize the amount of customer data they collect and store, and they also delete a lot of the network metadata far sooner than traditional providers would. Some of their security features are actually built into the network themselves. One of those is identifier rotation. You see, when you've got a SIM card in your phone, that identifier is physically tied to your device, which can actually make it easier for networks to constantly recognize the same phone over time, what cell towers you connect to, where you travel, where your home is, where your work is. It's quite scary stuff. However, Cape actually rotates that device identifier, essentially making it seem like you're using a different device or appearing as a different user. It's only temporarily though, but it really helps reduce long-term tracking, a really interesting feature. Another one that I love is secondary numbers, because let's face it, every website, delivery app, online store, pretty much everyone wants your phone number nowadays. And if you give your phone number out to one person, it may end up in the wrong hands, you may get scam calls, scam texts, your phone number and details may get sold to data brokers. It's just an absolute nightmare. However, Cape mitigates that by offering you additional numbers that you can use. And these aren't just temporary numbers either. You can actually use them for two-factor authentication, and it gives you secure access to them. You can use these numbers for sign-ups, shopping accounts, and even two-factor authentication, and it allows you to keep your main phone number actually private for your use. They've also got built-in protection against SIM swap attacks, which are becoming ever more increasing lately. How they work is that someone pretends to be you, phones your network provider, and manages to get your phone number transferred to their phone. That then allows them to access your two-factor authentication and get into stuff like your YouTube channel. A lot of YouTube channels that get hacked nowadays normally happen because of SIM swapping attacks. However, Cape also mitigates this because they've actually removed the human element when you're transferring SIMs or numbers between devices. Cape also has things like enhanced network protections and secure global roaming, designed to reduce exposure when connecting to mobile networks internationally when you're traveling. Unfortunately, Cape only offers US phone numbers and service for US customers, but I've managed to get it in the UK and I've been testing it here using their international roaming support, and it does actually work quite well, but this is mainly for you lucky people watching in the US. And finally, one thing that I do like is you can actually install the Cape app directly through the Crescent store on GrapheneOS, which is good because then you don't have to rely on the Google Play Store, which is even better. The default keyboard that we have in GrapheneOS is not Google Gboard. It is literally just like the standard keyboard that comes with Android's open source project, so it's really basic. I haven't used this keyboard in ages. One of the other things that I like about Graphene is you can actually install multiple user profiles. So it goes without saying, this isn't my first time using Graphene. I've just literally set up a new user and it's pretty much just like resetting the entire phone. So I've made 3 here. So I've got Owner, which is my main one. I've got Google, which has all my Google services and stuff all together in that user profile, so they can't actually access anything in my main profile or this new one that I've just set up. So that really helps just to compartmentalize Google, Facebook, and all the other tracking apps you may have on your phone, all in one user profile, which is a really underrated feature. So I mean, you could have like a work profile, you could set up maybe another user for all your banking apps, productivity. I believe you can have quite a lot of users on GrapheneOS, so I'm really not taking advantage of this as much as I should maybe. So this is the Google Play services. As you can see here, I've installed Google Play services and Google Play Store on my main one. But if we look at Google Play services here, go onto the settings, as you can see, we can disable it, we can uninstall it, or we can just completely stop it, which if you've got an Android phone, go and check right now if you can do that. I bet you can't. Or even if you can disable it, it will just mess things up. But it's not a core part of the operating system, which I really like. Obviously, we've got the Google Play Store, so we can go ahead and open that. And look at that. Pretty much just like the Android experience, except if we say wanted to install this app, this little prompt here, allow network permission, which we don't actually have to grant. And if we don't, well, I think the app's going to be fairly useless because I think this one is pretty much just like a web app. Yeah, no internet at all. It's pretty much just like not connecting your phone to the Wi-Fi. It can't do anything, but really good for sandboxing apps for sure. This is my main user profile here. As you can see, I can go on YouTube, no problem at all. So that's good. You've also got Gmail for your emails. Pretty much all Google services work on this just fine, except they're actually sandboxed from one another. So when you install Google apps, you have to sign in. It's a bit annoying. It doesn't just remember your login details for all Google apps, but in a way that's a good thing because it means they're separate from one another. And yeah, it's a really good feature. Like I say, we've also got Android Auto, which, I mean, huge props to the developers of this for actually getting this to work, because I mean, I can't really live without Android Auto now. And it works wirelessly as well. You don't actually have to physically plug your phone in. Here's another cool feature about GrapheneOS, and probably the reason why some people may have clicked on the video. You can actually use a desktop mode, which is actually enabled in the settings. So in developer options, there's this mode right here, which we can go ahead and turn on. And then again, if we go ahead and plug it into a monitor, keyboard and mouse using my USB-C dock, we can get a GrapheneOS desktop experience on my ultra-wide monitor from InnoCN, which is a 34-inch 1440p monitor, which is good for a desktop setup just like this, but also for gaming too. I quite like it. It's my first ultra-wide monitor, and I'll leave a link to it in the video description. So this is what it looks like. It's fairly basic, but obviously the operating system itself is quite basic. So we've got the app drawer here, we've got all of my apps. We're on my main user profile right now, so it's got all my personal apps, including Cape itself, which, as you can see here, is now windowed. So this isn't just opening just like an app that would be mirrored. We can resize the window here, we can maximize it like that, we can minimize it, close it, just whatever. And the phone itself can still actually be used as a phone alongside this desktop mode. So it's pretty much just like Google Pixel's, or I suppose GrapheneOS's version of Samsung DeX. We've got our battery status and everything at the top, which is quite unique. Wow, I've never actually seen that before. Yeah, Samsung DeX has it at the bottom. But yeah, we've got our notification shade here and our control center, which is in a very weird position, I must admit. So yeah, it could do with a bit of a redesign, to be honest, but I guess it's just based off Google Pixel's version of Samsung DeX, which I think they call desktop mode. So multitasking on here, no problem whatsoever. You can open up apps, drag them around, do productivity stuff, video editing, possibly gaming as well, but I'm not going to try it because Google Pixel phones don't have the best chips in them. They don't have Snapdragon chips. They don't even have Exynos chips. They have this really slow Tensor processor, which is just not very good for gaming, so I'm not even going to bother testing it. But as a phone, not a gaming phone, this Google Pixel's been fine for just my everyday use case. And the fact it can do desktop mode just like this, I suppose, is a bonus. There's some cool other features on GrapheneOS as well. So for example, if I go to unlock my phone, as you can see, the pin here is scrambled. And this is basically for, like, if you're out in public and you type in your passcode, sometimes people can recognize the pattern in which you're pressing and work out which numbers they are. However, this time they're always scrambled, and while it does take a little second or two to work out your PIN code in your head and type it in because the numbers aren't in the right places, it's really good for overall security. They also have a duress PIN code, which is basically a special PIN code that you can set up that if someone enters into your phone, it completely wipes the phone and all your data is gone. However, I've never got into a situation where I've actually needed that, but it's kind of cool that that's included for sure. On top of that, if you hold the power button here, there's also a lockdown mode as well. I assume it locks down your phone if you're in a dodgy situation. If you were to use a public phone charger and plug that into your phone, it can actually ensure that all USB-C cables plugged into your phone are only good for charging and not data transfer, which is really good. And I don't know why all Android phones don't have a setting like that. Now, to be fair, using GrapheneOS isn't completely perfect, and there are definitely a few compromises compared to, say, regular Android or iPhone. The biggest one for me is there is no contactless payments, because while you can install the Google Play services and get the Google Wallet app, you can't actually add a card to the Google Wallet app, so you can't use this for contactless payments in shops. It's a really annoying sort of feature, but from what I've read and what I've heard, it is actually Google actually being the problem here, not something that GrapheneOS can just work out themselves. Luckily though, I found a workaround called Curve Pay. It basically acts as like a middle layer, so you can add your existing bank cards into the Curve app and then use that app for contactless payments instead. And honestly, it's worked surprisingly well for me. It's not quite as seamless as, say, something like Apple Pay or Google Wallet, but after a few days, I completely got used to it and kind of stopped thinking about it, because you can map it to the button here and just pay like normal. It's pretty good. Another issue people always mention with GrapheneOS is banking apps, because banking apps kind of see GrapheneOS and instantly assume that the phone's rooted or compromised or not secure, even though it isn't. Now, I've had personal experience of this, and weirdly I managed to fix it, and it was pretty much just by disabling a simple setting called secure app spawning. No idea what it does, but it worked, and after doing all of that, pretty much every app that I personally use has started working normally again. So pretty much no compromises for me, and most apps will just work, and you just get the familiar Android experience, just with way more control over your phone, over permissions, tracking and background activity. I suppose the only main trade-off is the features. You miss out on quite a lot of the flashy AI stuff that some newer Android features have, but personally I realised I didn't actually miss any of that. In fact, using a phone without constant AI features, recommendation systems and just background nonsense has honestly made for the experience to feel a lot calmer and a lot less distracting as well. I suppose the only real limitation of GrapheneOS is that right now it only supports Google Pixel phones. And Google Pixel phones definitely aren't the most exciting Android phones hardware wise. So overall, is this phone completely anonymous? Obviously not. The moment you install a particular set of apps or any connected devices, there's always trade-offs, but compared to a normal smartphone setup, this feels dramatically more private. Not only is there less tracking thanks to both GrapheneOS and Cape, but there's also less noise, distraction, and I suppose it's as close to a minimalist phone as you can possibly get. And my battery life is way better than on stock Android because the phone is doing less spying on me in the background. Going back to a regular phone after this would honestly feel like giving up something that I didn't even know that I was missing. And for that is the reason why this is my main phone. So thank you to Cape for making this video possible. If you want to check them out, I'll leave a link to them in the video description. And if you use the code NotRodan33, you can get 33% off your first 6 months of using Cape. So yeah, that's pretty much the video. Bit of a different one today, but it's something I've been wanting to share, this sort of setup that I've been running for quite a while now. If you want to see more stuff like this on the channel, then definitely know down in the comments, and I will see you in my next video.